Welcome to Licking Non-Vanilla, a sex-positive hour of talk about kink, sexual mores, and writing dirty words. So grab a cup of cocoa, your favorite easy chair, and the lube as we go sailing into the dark, sweet waters of all things naughty. On Licking Non-Vanilla with your hosts Ralph Greco Jr. and M. Christian.
So once again, you have reached Licking Non-Vanilla for all your salacious needs. My name is Ralph Greco Jr. and across the aisle and across the country from me is...
Chris, otherwise known as M. Christian.
And today, Chris, we are very lucky to be speaking to someone we both are in contact with and we adore. And this is Bridget
Absolutely.
from HotMovies. Hello, Bridget.
Hi guys, how's it going? So nice to finally talk to you.
We've been actually in contact with you for a while, right? I mean, it's got to be at least 6 months.
Oh yeah,
I think so.
definitely. I'd say.
Well, as you get older, Bridget, I don't know about you, but as we get older, time just slows, just flies by and then you die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Bridget is the, tell us what you do at HotMovies, because this is Bridget from HotMovies.
What's your title exactly?
Yeah, Bridget, what is your title exactly?
So technically, I'm the editor-in-chief of our blog, but I also do social media marketing, Twitter. Occasionally, I fix up star bios when they call in and complain.
Mm-hmm, right.
But yeah. Master of all, master of none. I don't know.
Wow. Well, Chris and I know you because we write for this. Is it the Spotlight section, right? That's what we write for?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. And I think we met, you and I, Bridget, met through XBiz. I think you put a posting up on XBiz.
Yeah. I'm always looking for guest writers for the blog that work in the industry or have sex education knowledge. So you guys hit me up through there, and it was perfect.
See, Chris, we're knowledgeable. Did you know that, Chris?
I'm fine. That's the first time I've heard it. I've heard other words. I've heard other words to describe us. Knowledgeable is really not on the list.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. So tell us a little bit.
Retrograde seems to show up quite a bit.
Yeah. So Bridget, tell us a little bit about HotMovies for people who've never been, or just go there for the research.
Sure. So we're a video-on-demand company that started in 2003. We have a couple different pay platforms, but our most popular, people buy minute packages.
Okay.
And you just kind of use what you need when you need it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Understand.
So yeah.
Interesting. And you have HotMovies. Then there's other things we're going to touch on too, because you guys do a lot more than just that. But Chris, why don't you jump in here? You got any quick questions for her initially?
Well, the first off the bat is I want to say that we both Ralphie and I have worked for a lot of people over the years, and we have to say working with you and writing for you is absolutely one of the best things on the planet. So
absolutely. If
you're blushing, my mission has been successful.
I definitely am.
You
guys are such a pleasure to work with.
Thank
Super
you.
timely, great writing, great
Chris,
knowledge.
Chris, that's a good point, and we should ask her, because Chris and I get on here all the time. We expound about how to be a better writer, how to go forward in the business. But from your standpoint, Bridget, what do you look for in a writer that's somebody you want to work with again and again?
Definitely base knowledge of the topic is number one, especially in this industry, because you're going to get like a lot of people who want to do the work but maybe don't have the experience behind it. And I want someone with the insight, like personal experience to back up what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And I definitely basic grammar is always nice, but that's kind of where I come in. I edit the text, but it doesn't really matter so much. But it's definitely mostly about the insight, and then just generally pleasant, prompt communication, which you guys are great about. Pretty much.
Chris, we've said this once. If we said it 1,000 times, is the one thing we do pride ourselves on is good communication. And in this day and age, there's no reason that you can't communicate.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, and also some of your articles, well, a lot of your, at least the ones I've written for you, I know that Chris has written for you, you're also looking for a goodly amount, if I can say it that way, of kind of smattering the movie titles in there, or links to the movies and
Mhm.
the SEO considerations?
Yeah, definitely SEO is a big part of what I do. We want to just show up on Google if possible, wherever possible. And the good thing about Hot Movies is we have content from every niche imaginable. And there's something that's always relevant no matter what when writing about anything pertaining to the industry or sex education. We have something that relates that we can promote alongside the writing.
Right. That brings out the SEO, which is search engine optimization for those people out there who don't know what it is.
Yeah,
Exactly. All
very
those
tricky
magic
stuff.
words that Google will pick up.
Yeah, right, exactly. And you do have a wide variety of stuff. Is there anything on there that you've rejected, like stuff that somebody's come to you with content and you said, no, we don't want to do that?
Oh yeah.
Really?
So when I first got started at Hot Movies, my initial position was just we would get the content in from providers. I would sit down at my desk and I'd do 8 to 11 movies a day of just editing the content.
Okay.
And there was a lot of times I'd have to jump up from my desk and go, oh, okay, no, we're not doing this.
Interesting. Okay.
And, the restrictions changed over the years. The banks don't want certain content associated with them, so we don't do fisting personally. And then there's just other stuff that's like taste-wise, like I can recall a certain video that just stuck in my mind forever. And I don't kink shame, but I don't like to see stuff being eaten from orifices. I'll spare you.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess because with Chris and I have more than we've written about and taught a little bit, and seen some stuff that we, even at the conventions that we teach, that we've said this all the time, right, Chris? What's the term we use? If that's not your thing, not our thing, but it's perfectly fine if that's what you're into. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, as long as it's safe, sane, and consensual, that's great.
Yeah.
But if it kind of has like a gut reaction, like, ooh, this seems unsafe for a viewer to consume and then potentially try to emulate, then we hold it to a higher standard of maybe we don't put this up, We're pretty good with our vetting process here.
Well, that's really
Chris, admirable. That's absolutely admirable. I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Chris, we've often said that about the safety factor first and foremost, right?
Absolutely. There's so much stuff out there that people put out without realizing someone's going to try this, and if it's one of the more risky behaviors, that's a really serious implication. I mean, there's a lot of, BDSM activities that, one wrong move, it can really screw somebody up. So I'm really glad to see that, Hot Movies has this stance because, again, there's so much risk out there.
Yeah, and I mean, like, porn is entertainment primarily, but you'd be kidding yourself to think that people don't try some of the stuff that they see regardless.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, how could you not? I mean, if you're running to the edge even to a fantasy, you may have tickled or not, tried maybe a little bit or not with this new partner you're with, and you get on, you look at some stuff, and then you may take that next step, which is, so let's do this. And in some of those instances, that let's do this could lead you into areas that maybe are not the best for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris and I tend to do more novice classes than anything else, and we were stressing safety at every juncture.
Yeah, it's super important, and specifically with BDSM, where the risk is potentially lethal, as you've touched in some of your blogs.
Yeah, we both actually. Yeah, that's true. Chris, when I was talking to Bridget earlier, she mentioned something that I find pretty interesting. I didn't know they were into this. Let's talk about, if we can, Bridget, a little bit about the face recognition stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that.
Hot Movies we're really lucky. We have our own in-house development team, and we're always constantly looking at ways to improve the site. And one of the features, while not exactly perfect yet, is this AI facial recognition software. So you can just kind of upload any picture really, but your favorite porn star, and it'll match to that star. Wow. So you can find videos if you don't know their name.
That's really cool. That's very cool. Well, because Chris is could I say, Chris, that you're quite the futurist when it comes to the writing?
Oh, I'll blush, but absolutely.
Okay. So, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that he's into, Bridget. Yeah, Bridget. Or I'll call you Bridget for now. So, I think we're both, I'm a little bit interested in it, and I have some knowledge, but he certainly exceeds my knowledge in that way,
Aw.
but it's certainly there seems to be in this world, especially in the digital world, so many things coming down the pike that we can't even foresee yet.
I know. And I mean, porn, they say, is like the pioneer of technology because it's what everybody goes on the internet to do.
Yeah.
So like virtual reality, that came first, and facial recognition. We're just always trying to be the next wave, basically.
Right. I think that's true. And I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the sex industry has been like driving technology for a long time.
Yeah.
well, drove digital for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because there would be no hot movies if there was no digital. I mean, there was not the advent of digital creates that place for you guys to be able to do what you do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just constantly changing, but it's a really exciting industry to work in. I've only been working here for the past 5 years, and I've already seen so many changes implemented. It's really cool.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things Chris wanted to ask you. How did a nice girl like you end up in a place like this?
I got so lucky, I gotta say. So I'm from Philly. I went to school for writing, and I was working in restaurants, pretty miserable, and looking for writing gigs on the side. And I saw this ad on Craigslist that I thought had to be a scam, and it was just like, adult industry website seeks writers interested in the content. And I've always been a porn fan, so I figured, this would be great if it's real. And I wasn't sure, and then I show up, and it's a legitimate office with cubicles, super professional people, really, really, really great people.
Wonderful.
And I was lucky enough to get the job and kind of work my way up.
Wow, that's cool. So
I got really lucky.
Yeah, how often we answer those ads and they go nowhere? Right?
Oh yes.
I mean, the countless.
Well, that's wonderful, because there's some companies out there, like I said, you're meeting in the back of a cafe somewhere. That's it.
Yeah, some guy's van.
Exactly.
I was super glad I showed up, and it wasn't just a black leather couch in a seedy room or something.
a bare form overhead. Yeah. With a fashionable sign outside that says "Eats." So, Bridget, you also mentioned to me about the clip search and movie maker playlist. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the movie maker playlist is an old function that we've revamped. But basically, so our users can save clips that they like and kind of make playlists based on, like, second to second, their favorite parts of each movie that they like. So you can have, for example, like your favorite cum shots from some movies. You could do a 100 movie playlist of just your favorite pop shots, or favorite anal scenes, favorite stars that perform in certain movies. It's really cool, and users can share them and save them, and it's just like a unique feature that we offer. And then the clip search is actually super cool. So on HotMovies, if you go to our clip search, you can narrow down. We have hundreds of thousands of scenes on the site. Yeah. You can narrow down to like absolutely the most specific thing that you want to see. So whether it's, I don't know, BBW MILFs with implants, trampling and doing smoking fetishes, you can find that, and you can find as much content as we have available for that specific search. And I mean, it's just, you can narrow it down by what the stars look like, what the action is, where it takes place. If you're really into just shower porn, it's a good way to narrow down all the stuff that we have.
Well, I think that's important, because when you have a depository like you do, there's so much stuff,
Yeah.
And it's fun to look around, but at times when you're saying you put your minutes and you know what you're there for. You want to get to, the Japanese robot spanking porn is what you're looking for. That's what
exactly.
Not that I'm giving anything away by own taste, but You know,
Too much information, Ralphie. Too much
all
information.
beautiful.
it's all beautiful. We're all snowflakes, and we're all individual snowflakes, and and you also, other than the incredible two writers that you're talking to right now, which you're not going to get any better than that, but you do have performers and industry figures that write for you on occasion.
Yeah, we were super lucky this year to start including like actual performers, directors. We had
Very
Sydney
cool.
Leathers write a few articles for us. She gained notoriety for the whole Anthony Weiner scandal a couple years ago. Courtney Trouble, great performer director, Trouble Films. Lotus Lane, like a lot of big name stars. Missy Martinez.
That's cool.
Yeah, and
that's excellent. That's really exciting.
Yeah, I just kind of they submit pitches of what they'd like to write about, and I just pretty much if you want to write it, you want to put your name on it, I'd love to hear from you and publish it.
Yeah, why wouldn't you, right? I mean, they're in the industry, they have a big fan base. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and it's nice to support them, through other means, so they don't have to just rely on their affiliate income from us or whatever.
Now, before we go any further, let's just let everybody know you're listening to Licking Non-Vanilla with Ralph Greco Jr. and M. Christian, otherwise known as Chris. His friends call him Chris, so I have to call him M. Christian. And also we're talking today to Bridget from Hot Movies. And you got to go over to HotMovies.com because HotMovies.com is amazing and it's got tons of stuff. And you're going to spend a lifetime looking through it, basically. So much great stuff there. Plus, there's amazing writing there, too, I'd say. Wouldn't you say that, Chris? Some great writing there.
Absolutely. Astounding writing. It's kind of brilliant writing. Absolutely. Right. I mean, this is the stuff that really sets the industry standard.
Absolutely. Well, seriously, Bridget, that does separate you guys from other places like yours. That you have writing there.
Yeah, we're lucky that I can focus so much time and kind of curate this blog so that we do set apart. But that's what that's our goal, to set ourselves apart from like the tube sites and other VOD sites.
Right. Because there's a lot out there,
provide our users with stuff that they can't get anywhere else.
And it's because it is quite the competitive field.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Certainly.
Sure. And let's just talk the last bit of this about how does a content provider come to you and what do they need to present to you? Do they need to have 20 movies downloaded? I mean, how does one I have a whole bunch of stuff I want to contact Hot Movies. How does that happen?
Well, that's an excellent question, Ralphie.
So we're opening up submissions for independent content producers as well, since independent content's getting so popular.
Yeah.
You basically just have to be able to submit us your content through FTP download.
Okay.
And you don't need to you can just have a couple of clips if you want. But we make you sign a contract, and you have to have your 2257 documentation too, of course.
Right.
Which some tube sites are a little cagey about, but we are not.
Okay. Right. So you're playing it above board all the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
very important. Very important.
Yeah, because you don't want to get in the middle of something and then you guys are going to have trouble because you got involved with the wrong content provider.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, we've never had an issue before because of our strict protocols, but yeah, you can just go to hotmovies.com and there's a place for content producers to submit. Email us.
Well, Chris, we get off the phone here with Bridget, we'll start downloading stuff for you,
Absolutely.
The adventuring
research
of the adventuring, yeah. Bridget, what's coming out for the future for Hot Movies beyond the facial recognition stuff that you got going, all this wonderful stuff? What would you say is the next wave you see on the horizon?
Well, we're definitely going to be promoting the Movie Maker playlist more. That's pretty much just getting ramped up on the site again. We revamped everything, and definitely more blogs. I'm reaching out to more stars to get more original content from them.
Cool.
And interviews. If anyone wants to be interviewed by us, we're always open to interviewing performers, content producers, directors.
Listen to that, folks. Everybody out there, Hot Movies is definitely interested in interviews. So, you can present yourself to them, and I'm sure they'll be interested for that.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's always worthwhile.
It's a competitive industry, but we try to provide a platform.
Absolutely. I think you do. Well, Chris, what else you have for Bridget? You have anything else for Bridget, or we've covered everything?
Well, I just want to say again, it's how how wonderful it is to work for you, but also I really like the site. I mean, it's like it's easy to navigate. It's got plenty of content. I have to really applaud you for that. So that's really fantastic. I think it's like, not to sound like I'm buttering you up too much, but other sites really should learn from what you're doing, because you really do an excellent job.
Yeah, well, it's like you said, Bridget. I mean, it's a professional situation over there. You guys are you're playing in the field, in a very competitive field, so you have to be at the top of your game in order to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a great team. I'm blessed with the coworkers that I have and the management that I have. So we're a tight ship, but we're doing it.
That's cool. That's very good.
That's wonderful.
I'm gonna get Chris out to the East Coast again, and we're gonna meet you for sure. I'm gonna definitely just meet you for coffee or something. Because
I'd love that.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Great. But we're gonna continue our wonderful relationship with you, and we thank you. We can't thank you enough for being on Licking Non-Vanilla. Really.
Yes, no, thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
So we're going to say goodbye. Us and Chris and I are going to keep going with the show. We'd have another half an hour we're going to fill with just naughty talk. But Bridget, thank you again so much. Please go to HotMovies.com. Check out the site, and you can find Chris and I and some of our scribblings there as well.
Yep,
absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Such a pleasure to be on.
Thank you, Bridget. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, that was wonderful.
What
she
a
is
wonderful
such
person,
a sweetheart.
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
We've been lucky so far with her, because we've worked for her for quite a while, and it's nothing but wonderful so far.
Absolutely,
right?
She's definitely one of my favorite people.
Yeah, she's great, and it's funny. She reiterated what we have been talking about all along, about communication and about being nice, right, and professional and all that stuff, and that's basically and now our listeners have now heard that from an editor's standpoint, not from a writer's standpoint. Although Bridget is a writer, you heard it from her professional standpoint as an editor, what's important to her,
Absolutely. I'm so glad that we were able to do that, because it's true. It's like, a lot of it is like practice and getting used to writing and knowing your subject, but really it's maintaining those relationships. That's the really important thing.
Right. And once you establish them, because they are hard to establish to begin with, it's wonderful if you can keep them going and get to them and make
absolutely
and make them into something that you could hopefully just keep going, keep maintaining for a long time, And I think that's important, and I think that's what's wonderful about her. She's just one of those people. Now you and I. Because I'm looking through, Chris and I, we probably talk more. Well, we certainly talk more over the show than we do on the show, don't we, Chris? You would think,
right? Absolutely, absolutely,
for sure. So we talk all the time about the writing life, about just life in general. A lot of personal stuff. We've been mustered each other through, and Chris and I are always saying, well, what other topics can we talk about on the show? And we've hammered home the stuff about being a writer and how to be a writer and all this stuff. But we should talk about maybe a little bit, because talking to Bridget today about facial recognition stuff and the future of sex, for want of a better term. You've often told me and often said, one of the subjects you're most interested in is sex and technology.
Absolutely.
And
that's a big fetish of mine.
Right. And you were writing that stuff years ago, though. You were writing, like, I'm talking like Rude Mechanicals, which is one of your books. Weren't you writing? You were writing sci-fi sex a long time ago, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I mean it's I mean it's one of those things. It's like, I mean, what's wrong with it? I mean, it's like you get to write science fiction and sex. It's like it's kind of it's like a no lose proposition.
Right. Yeah, but you were doing it. I mean, that's got to be the convergence of your interests in science fiction from way back, and then your interests in fetish and kink and all that stuff. So it seems to come together. But
absolutely.
Can you think about way back, other than you, because you're a pioneer, of course. But other than you, who was doing it? Do you think who was bridging that gap early on? Maybe 60s, even 70s.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of writers who are dabbling into it. I mean, it's funny. It's like you dig into like science fiction, there's always this kind of kinky side to it because, like, many writers were writing, porn, frankly, in
Mhm.
addition to writing, science fiction. And many writers sort of combine the two to a certain
Right.
extent. I mean, you've got like writers like Bob Silverberg, who always, no matter what he's doing, always has a very sensual, sexual aspect to it, which makes his work writing so wonderful. But other Philip Jose Farmer, like Piers Anthony, even a lot of people were doing this. In fact, I heard this cute little story that every once in a while, a gaggle, which is actually a technical term, of science fiction writers would get together and have a contest to see who can get a letter into like Penthouse Letters first. So, so many of those letters you read were probably written by, on a bet with a whole bunch of science fiction writers. But, and then, as far as like actually mixing it, I mean, we have to give a big nod to Cecilia Tan and the Circular Press and that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And they were like really kind of like sort of became out with doing it. But, yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating stuff to do. I mean, once again, it's like, what could be better? Mixing science fiction and sex is perfect.
Yeah, and it's interesting because now, of course, with the future happening right at the moment, you're getting so much stuff. You're constantly getting bombarded with like Bridget was talking about. There's there's so much new stuff, and porn always seems to always follow that path, or at least
absolutely.
Because people are looking for porn in the newest ways they can get it, disseminate the information. So it's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's like, I'm really blessed to be writing for futureofsex.net, and I've been doing that for about 5 years or so.
Mhm.
And they are really like a great place as far as like information on this kind of stuff. And again, it's like I really count myself as being very, very, very lucky that I can once again write about technology and sex. So there's all kinds of cool stuff, and there's stuff happening all the time, especially now with how prevalent things like virtual reality is and such. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's it's funny. You just brought up a point, and I was talking to our producers the other day about this, and I don't know if we do it. We don't do enough of this, but at the same time, I don't want to do too much of this. But Chris and I have really not spoken about where we have written or where our writing is presently being seen. And just recently, one of the places we write for, called Sexpert.com,
yes,
they produced a top 40 list of sex blogs, and we were number 12 on that list, and which is very sweet. And you can go to our blog. There's another thing too. If you ever want to check out what's going on in Licking Non-Vanilla, go to the Licking Non-Vanilla site. That's Licking Non-Vanilla,
which you are doing wonderfully, Rafi.
Thank you. And it's lickingnonvanilla.com, and you can find the shows there and or the blog. But anyway, I wrote a blog at the beginning of the week about being featured in that listing of sex blogs. Sex podcasts, and there's a ton of them out there. So, but my point is that Chris and I both write for Sexpert. Chris writes for Future of Sex, right, Chris?
Yep.
Okay. I write a semi-regular column at Short and Sweet NYC and Short and Sweet LA.com.
You've been doing that for a long time. Yeah,
quite a
wonderful.
while. That's called the Sex Files. And Chris, what else? And of course, we write for Bridget at HotMovies, which is HotMovies.com. So, although Chris and I don't like to blow our horn, we like to blow each other's horn. But thank you very much. Tip your waitresses, try the veal.
And he never calls me back afterwards. I don't know what's wrong. I mean, seriously, it's really messing with my ego here. I mean, it's like no matter what I do, he never calls me back.
I blow his horn and then I go on my way.
But uses me and throws me away.
It's what else is new. But so I was thinking about this the other day, and I said, well, I don't want to belabor the point, but I do want to have people know where we are in other places.
Exactly.
And they can, and then of course you could Google our names and find us. Our various books that have been published. And Chris, you also appear in another blog, don't you? Another podcast.
I do a couple. I mean, Kinkly, I write for them, on and off. They're a wonderful resource. I just started writing for Sex for Everybody, though I don't think my first article's appeared yet, but it will be fairly soon.
Very cool.
And that's run by the wonderful Jenna Oceanic. And I'm always mispronouncing her name, and I hope she doesn't hear me and yell at me because, she's a wonderful editor. And she also does futureofsex.net. And
cool.
Queer Majority I write for. And that's a wonderful site. And there's a couple of other ones. But yeah, it's pretty much those right now. But of course, a lot of them, it's like, it's like, that you write, 3 or 4 pieces here, 3 or 4 pieces there.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are kind of like sort of a quasi regular gig. There's more coming up all the time, so you can definitely check us out on social media. I mean, you can find us there,
Yeah.
through the Looking Non-Vanilla Twitter, which
And
I
Facebook
can't
page.
remember.
And there's a
The
Facebook page too. Yeah.
exactly. Which
Yeah.
I'll tell you what the Twitter handle is. Just give me a second here.
And yeah, I mean,
One of those things I just,
and what's important, for writers like Chris and I, regular gigs are extremely important, and if we can land
Oh,
those,
absolutely.
like with Bridget, how we have a good relationship with Bridget and Sexpert, and we can land those. We're very happy, and Chris with Future Sex. But there are those instances where things dry up for no reason, and all of a sudden you're not doing it anymore. So there's not a lot of rhyme and reason to the business sometimes, and not everybody is as communicative and consistent as Bridget is, or Domina Doll over at Sexpert. Dropping a lot of names here at you, but it's about time we did. We haven't talked about what we do and where we do it. I also work for the Erotic Heritage Museum in Las Vegas, and
they're wonderful.
Yeah, and they just recently reopened. Have you seen all? So everybody's just trying to do their thing and get where they have to get, and we're just trying to get far and wide with your ears so you can hear us here and figure out what's going on at Licking Non-Vanilla. But I think out of all the things that are coming down the pike, Chris, what do you think you're most, or do you have something you're most interested in when it comes to sex and technology? Is there something that's glaring at you and you're like, I'm really interested in this?
I mean, it's all really cool. I mean,
Right.
It's like I'm such a technophile. But it's like, I think a lot of it is probably augmented reality is one of the big things.
Okay.
That's a couple of years away from being mainstream, though I heard something very interesting today that Apple is going to be releasing augmented reality glasses, maybe even this year or probably next. And they're pretty affordable. They're like $500, not including the prescription for the lenses, which is like, wow, that's pretty affordable. Augmented reality, just really quickly, there's virtual reality, which is where you're basically wearing television screens in front of your face. So you're basically immersed in a different world. And that's really exciting stuff. It's a little high-end expensive. I mean, some of the more immersive ones will run you like $5,000 even, or something similar. I mean, that's the high end. But augmented is really cool because what it does, it superimposes information on what you're already looking at. So if you looked at an object, the glasses would detect what you're looking at and it would tell you about the object. So that's really exciting.
Wow.
But the other one I think is probably they've been doing a lot of work on haptic feedback, which is the technical term for touch.
Yeah, we talked about that before. Exactly.
That stuff is really coming quickly. I mean, we're looking at like all this really kind of very science fiction-y cool technology where someday, and maybe very soon, we'll be able to put on our glasses of either augmented or virtual reality and be able to have a sense of touch. And that's going to blow adult entertainment out of the water.
Yeah, and again, it will impact adult entertainment as everything does in technology. I mean, that's where it's like ground zero for innovation and for people wanting to explore. Because we've seen it, over the course of Chris and I knowing each other at the very beginning days of people stretching out into the web and getting their things together. We talked to Octavia. I don't know in what order these shows will come out, but we talked to Octavia Hunter on this show, and she was mentioning, back in the 90s, the porn stars getting just to know that they should buy their domain names, and nobody even knew what that was at that point. So we've seen a lot of changes, and it's either, I don't know if it's spearheaded by porn, but certainly porn is in there somewhere, like Bridget just said.
Oh, it's absolutely. It's always been a big driving force. I mean, it drove VHS, it drove DVD, it drove streaming, it drove virtual reality. I mean, all this stuff is driven by adult entertainment. I mean, the joke is that, I think it was the Lumiere brothers who first made like the first motion picture.
Yeah.
And the first motion picture was like a short comedy. The second one was someone taking their clothes off.
Yeah, right. Of course.
It's like, it's like sex has always been there.
Well, yeah. Well, the one of those early Einstein movies is The Kiss. and it's just
Exactly.
a lady and a man kissing, and at the time it was
Mm-hmm.
considered extraordinarily risque,
Mm-hmm.
because I think in the movie they lock lips and they don't separate their lips for a certain amount of time, and that was like,
Mm-hmm.
the damnation and the seas will rise, and
Mm-hmm.
it's fun. Speaking of Edison,
Mm-hmm.
close to where I live is Edison's factory, and
Oh, cool.
it's still in existence, and a mock-up of the Black Maria, which but I don't know if anybody, other people don't know, was his movable black little boxy movie studio, and it's
Mm-hmm.
right on the main drag. You can see it, and I remember going there as a Cub Scout and having a tour of that place, and he was quite, he's quite the fixture in New Jersey, and then that they call the Wizard of Menlo Park, and that's just a little bit of
That's
history
right.
there for you. Yeah. And that's Menlo Park is not so far from where I live. It's pretty cool, and to think, I mean, you imagine if you put. Although I always think about this about guys like Tesla or Edison, if you were to drop them right now into this time, right, and say, "Look, guys, look
Mm-hmm.
what's going on." As surprised as they would be, those guys had the kind of brains where I think they would be able to figure their way a little bit. I think they
Mm-hmm.
would, because I think they have those kind of brains. It's like the movie with is it Time After Time with Malcolm McDowell, and he
I think so.
chases Jack the Ripper into San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and he plays H.G. Wells in the movie, and he comes
Mm-hmm.
forward in time because of his time machine, which is a little, they're using that in a kind of an interesting way. But
Mm-hmm.
he has no problem really adjusting to the future, because these guys
Mm-hmm.
worked with the future. This is what their stuff was about,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to think about how far we've come in a very little amount of time.
Exactly. I do agree with you. I think a lot of people would adapt pretty quickly. I mean, I think social changes would be harder to accept, like fashion, and that kind of stuff. But when you think about like first look at a smartphone, I mean, it's not really all that hard to comprehend. It's basically a radio, which depends on when our time traveler comes to our future.
Yeah.
If they're familiar with the concept of radio, it's basically could be described as a portable radio that then we also can transmit information as well as as pictures.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think the social change will be harder. I mean, just think what's happened in just like the last couple of decades around like social issues and such. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think it's a fascinating idea. It's like, I think a lot of people would adapt pretty quickly. Others would have a really, really hard time.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of people can't adapt to the way the world is now.
Well, Chris, I
So-
say this constantly. I mean, I try to hide this, but I don't do very well. I mean, I'm sitting here at a certain age, which I won't disclose, but you could tell by the references Chris and I use. I'm not. What's happening around me now is certainly not. It's certainly beyond me. I mean, it's changes and the way the world acts and behave and people behave, and this so-called evolution, which I think is more de-evolution, as Devo used to say. I have a very hard time. I just have to. I think with what I do is just keep my head down and just apply the things that are specifically in my day. I don't try to get
Mhm.
don't try to go beyond the pale. I mean, but
Well, it's funny because I think this is one of the places we sort of diverge a bit because
Yes.
I've always been like, I mean, we've both been geeks. We both love science fiction and such,
Yeah.
but I've always kind of like, I've always can't waited. I always was very eager. It's like, when is the future going to show up? So,
It's
when
now,
this
damn
kind
it.
of stuff like, exactly, when the stuff shows up on my radar, my
Yeah.
first reaction is cool.
Right.
I mean, this is great. Like I want to live in the future. I mean, I love like all these social changes. I think it's really empowering. I think it's really important. I think
Mhm.
it's like we're making the world for a better place. And I'm part of my fetish, of course, is technology. I mean, I live
Right.
in a studio apartment. I still have it wired up with smartphone appliances, so I can
Right.
turn my coffee maker on from the
Right.
damn bed. I mean, I've got it bad, man. I've got it really bad. So I mean, I've got a box full of sex toys under my bed. Not necessarily because I purchased them, because I'm doing for reviews and
Yeah.
such.
Right.
But
That's
it's
what we
just like
always say.
I think this is the The research. Yeah, research.
Research.
Air quotes.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I just think this is really cool. I love this kind of stuff. I mean, when I hear about this technology, my first reaction is, can I get my hands on it?
Right. Where can I
For a
sign up?
reasonable price.
Right. Yeah.
I would love to explore virtual reality. It's just a little expensive.
It is a little pricey. Now, I want to switch gears on you to the last couple of minutes here because something happened this week that I know you're gonna really kind of fanboy out about, and this has nothing to do with sex, guys. Sorry. So a buddy of mine is a huge Batman freak from before the Adam West, Burt Ward stuff, all the way up. Huge Batman freak. So it was his birthday, and I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go online and look for if there's any swag that I could get from Barris. Now,
very cool.
Now Chris knows who that is, and I'll tell you who that is in a second. I'll actually let Chris tell you because he knows of them and has flittered around past the place. Anyway, but Barris created the Batmobile, among other very well-known cultural cars, the Monkey Mobile, the Green Hornet, Kit from Knight Rider, back in the day. So I know this guy, my buddy, would be into this stuff. So I sent him a pin that Barris had made up and also a book about this stuff.
Very cool.
And it's cool. Barris not around anymore, but his daughter is running his shop, and she wrote me a very nice note. And the book was autographed. But for those not in the know, you growing up in LA, you knew of Barris. I mean, you actually went by the shop, didn't you?
Really quick funny story here. Yeah, exactly. My brother Sam, is a big car geek.
Okay.
So I'm a little less so, but we heard about what's called the George Barris auction. I'm not too sure when this happened. This was maybe back in the 70s or maybe in the early 80s. I can't remember. And so we thought, cool, why not? It was free to the public. So we raced up to wherever it was, somewhere in Hollywood. And we were there for the George Barris auction, and we saw like the cars from Sleeper. They had Black Beauty from Green Hornet. They had like a whole bunch of like the cars he would create for like car shows,
right?
But a lot of movie cars, and we were like geeking out like crazy. And we were in the non-bidding section, so we couldn't like actually put in a bid. But we saw like Batmobile. They had a Batmobile that went, and someone bought it. And it was a mind blower because they had all these cars, and it was really kind of a fun thing. But we were sitting in the watching the cars come out, and one thing showed up particularly that made me kind of like squeal like a schoolgirl. And the way Barris explained it was, this is one of two, and that Peter Fonda has the other.
Okay.
And if you bought it, it's currently not in working condition, but if you buy it, if you win the bid, Barris would convert this to a vehicle that could actually drive. It was the bike from Easy Rider.
Holy shit! How cool is that?
I mean, it was funny because it went for a ridiculously low price. I can't remember what it was. It was really low, and my brother and I were grabbing strangers by the lapels, going, "Give us money!" It's like, we must own this, even just to hang on my wall. That was a blast. I mean, we used to do the Hollywood thing all the time. In fact, I completely drew a blank. The guy who designed the land speeder from Damnation Alley, he had a studio, and you could drive by and see like the Landmaster in his lot. So it was quite fun. But yeah, Barris was a fun experience, and Barris, I have to say, was really a nice guy. I mean, he was like, he was very friendly. He was just kind of a regular person, and that was a blast.
You got to look up those old TV shows like on YouTube and there's the Monster Mobile, there's the Monkey's car, the Batmobile. Barris made tons of cars, Beverly Hillbillies, all those cars you see, he made in his shop in LA. But
absolutely,
Chris,
it was a blast.
I mean, there was a time I think, and I know there's a lot of landmarks that are gone, but there was a time that the sets for Cleopatra were still up, and you could go drive by the where that was. And if you happen to be a movie geek like we are, certainly old movies, this stuff, I know when you're out in LA, because you lived in LA. I've only visited, but I've been there and I've seen the steps, the Laurel and Hardy steps where they throw the piano down, and I can't. There are people that don't have that connection. They don't find those things that inferior interesting, and you and I do. Um,
I think it's wonderful. I mean, being in there. I mean, LA has a share of problems. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it was really cool to go like to the Bradbury Building, which has been
it's
in
incredible, isn't
everything
it?
from The Outer Limits to Blade Runner
It's incredible.
to like there's a famous James Garner film when he plays a private detective. I know I'll think about it after we hang up, but
Right.
yeah, it's like you can actually go to these locations, which is really cool. So you can actually like see like certain parts of history where this took place. I mean, like even David Lynch films, you can go around and see where certain things were filmed. It's really quite a mind blower.
Yeah,
It really is part of the city.
Well, that's what's cool about it. If you happen to live in a big city, and a famous city like New York City, San Francisco, L.A. Those are places that a lot of movies have been filmed. I mean, I'm not saying movies haven't been filmed in other places, but there are those places, and you see them. And when I was in the LA area and saw some spots where they're like almost like religious icons to us. We see the Bat Cave and up in Branson. To see that stuff, you're like, I can't believe that's the Bat. And of course, it's not the way it looks on television. It's just a little hole in the ground. But still, for us to see that stuff and geek out is just really cool.
Oh, absolutely! It's so much fun. It's like if you're a movie buff, definitely a trip to LA is definitely worthwhile.
Absolutely.
And there's other cities too. I mean, I think there's pretty much tours in all kinds of major cities. Like I know they had for a while in San Francisco a Hammett tour. So you could actually take the tour and see where Dashiell Hammett's landmarks in his books took place. And they even have a Hitchcock tour because you can go see like, various places like, the shop, the pet shop from the birds,
right.
or, where Ken Novak threw herself in the ocean by Fort Point in,
right.
I'm once again, I just lost the movie. God damn it. But yeah, there's like all these kind of places you can sort of go and see like where things took place. It really kind of was a mind blowing experience.
Yeah, and this stuff is part of our culture,
Vertigo. There you go.
Vertigo. Yeah. See, that's what happens. What happens is we get there. What usually happens is Chris will be searching. I'll go off and talk about something, and half his brain is listening, and the other half isn't. And then, but he comes back.
He's trying to figure it out.
And he'll yell out "Vertigo" in the middle of somewhere, or vice versa. I do the same thing to him. We'll be sitting somewhere watching somewhere, and something will happen, and the whole day will go by, and then like. Later on, I'll look at him and go, Sal Mineo. Is that the guy? So that's how we have. This is what happens when you get older. It doesn't come through immediately, but it happens.
And the movie I was thinking of was Marlowe with James Garner. He has his office in the Bradbury Building.
Yeah, and that's a cool spot. I've been there. That's a cool spot. But we go way back with these movies. But like Chris and I were talking about before, we're just as interested in what's happening now. And although I don't know if I've seen a really good, have you seen a real good sexy movie lately, Chris, that wasn't porn?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I watch a ton of movies, but I really haven't seen anything that really made my eyeballs pop out. There's been a couple that came close, but off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. It's like the sex scenes are there, but most of them are just kind of like incidental or such. And frankly, a lot of Hollywood movies really do sex pretty badly.
Yeah.
They're just like, they're always like throwing each other across furniture or something like this, and it's just like It's like, seriously, is this a sex scene or a wrestling match?
Yeah,
I mean, like they're always like tearing at clothes and all this kind of stuff. It's just like, it's ridiculous. But unfortunately, I haven't seen anything really.
Well, I think what's happening lately is you're seeing a lot better depictions on Netflix, Hulu, all those streaming services has some really hot shows and stuff on those shows, and I think that's where you're getting the juicy and well done juicy stuff. I've seen the adaptations of the 50 Shades of Grey stuff, and it was it's not really all that sexy to me. But I think if you're going to look at stuff like this, and I didn't see any of Games of Thrones, but I've heard Games of Thrones was pretty hot. I didn't see any of that Game of Thrones stuff, and Westworld.
Unfortunately, I didn't either.
Westworld has some hot stuff. Again, another thing I haven't seen too much of, but I know that most people when they talk about, oh, that was a hot scene, they're talking about something they saw, from a made for Netflix film or something on Amazon Prime.
Yep,
So maybe
absolutely. In fact, just this morning I was trying to find a new show to binge watch, which I've been doing a lot of, and I threw House of Lies in,
okay.
and it was funny. It's like, it's very good, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. But the first episode's got, like, bare bodies and everything, and it's like I had to sort of blink a couple of times because I was so used to, like, like broadcast television,
Yeah,
until I realized it was originally on Showtime, which means they can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
kind of
what
like,
is.
it kind of like surprised the hell out of me. It's
Yeah.
like, what the hell am I watching?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. When I began watching Billions on Showtime, and Billions, the first
Mhm.
scene is Giamatti's character. Paul Giamatti's laying on the ground on a floor
Mhm.
in his underwear, bound. He's got
Mhm.
he's got a fetish to be, for domination, to be dominated. So that's the opening scene of Billions, opening of the
Mhm.
series. So I thought that was pretty
Mhm.
interesting, and but again, Showtime. It wasn't a movie, like a movie I've
Mhm.
seen. I think I haven't seen anything. And then, like, I don't know if you saw the last Twin Peaks series, the third one
Oh
that was
yes.
on
Oh
Showtime
yes.
was that had a lot of wild stuff. But
Mhm.
you just mentioned David Lynch before. He's well known for to go around the edges.
Oh, absolutely. Lynchian films are always, like, wonderfully perverse and
Yeah,
weird, and it's
absolutely.
like, Dennis Hopper alone in Blue
Sure.
Velvet is just
Yeah,
like, it's like, oh, I don't know what boat he's on, but I want to join.
yeah.
It's just like,
I think that's the. We may want to just go out on this, because if you have not seen Dennis Hopper, if you haven't seen Blue Velvet, first of all, that's a must.
mhm.
If you haven't seen Dennis Hopper in Blue Velvet, it's just mind blowing. And Dean Stockwell singing the Candyman,
Oh,
holy
love
shit,
Dean
is that
Stockwell.
wild? And
Love Dean Stockwell.
Chris, real quick, what's the name of the movie he was in as a kid, where he plays the killer with that other guy?
Oh, I can't
Shit.
remember. I've always loved his work. I just can't remember that one. I
It's a
know it's going to come to me
it's a
after we hang up.
creepy movie, because in the movie they they play some kind of upper crust
Mhm.
kids in like a boarding school, if I remember correctly. Two boys, him and this other boy, and there's definitely an undertone, a homosexual undertone
Mhm.
that's never actually, they never get to it, and they kill some innocent kid, and they think they get away with the perfect murder, and they don't. And
Well, I know Hitchcock did Rope. Is that the one?
no, this is
No,
this
I
is
think
this
that's based on the
is
same crime.
yeah, this is just just really, really creepy Dean Stockwell, young Dean Stockwell. And Chris, he's
Mhm.
also in that episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yes.
When he's battling the Japanese soldiers, and
Mhm.
he suddenly is he's suddenly in the body of a Japanese soldier.
Mhm.
I don't remember, and I
Mhm.
don't remember. I'm sorry that I'm doing this to you. I don't remember all the names of these episodes, but Dean Stockwell is a guy. If you gonna definitely check out Blue Velvet, you got to check out
Mhm.
Hopper and Dean Stockwell, if nothing else. Just over the top.
And Lynch is always doing this. I mean,
Yeah.
everything from Mulholland Drive to the rest of it. I mean, the other one's Brian De Palma. He's
Yeah.
another one who's got, like, some gets his freak on quite often, and I've
Absolutely.
always
Absolutely.
enjoyed his films. And even Italian directors like Dario Argento. I mean, it's like, they get really kind of wild and crazy. I mean, in a good and wonderful
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The skirting horror and sex. And it's just,
Mhm.
and like a feast for your senses, And it's
Mhm.
nice to be. And again, I guess that's where people are going to the streaming services now, because I think that's where they're finding the content that's a little
Mhm.
bit, over the edge, or at least challenging,
Mhm. Absolutely. There's some really good services out there. I mean, between Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and, Tubi and on Crackle, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you got all kinds of stuff you can explore. I'm always finding something, either really cool or most of the time not, but it's really cool I can access these things. That's the other thing
Yeah.
about living in the future. I
There
mean,
you go.
you name the movie, you can usually find it.
That's right. Well, that's what it is. Living in the future. Maybe that's what I think is what
Mhm.
we're going to call this episode, "Living in the Future,"
There you go.
featuring Bridget from Hot Movies. So,
Yep.
Chris,
Oh, she's such a delight.
wonderful, wasn't she? She's a great person.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Chris, it's been another great time here at Licking Non Vanilla with you.
Thank you, and always with you.
I can't thank you enough. So this has been Ralph Greco Jr., and that's.
M. Christian, otherwise known as Chris.
And we'll see you next time, kids. And if you get a chance, or even if you don't get a chance, go to hotmovies.com, please. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, Chris.
Bye-bye.
And visit us on the web at www.hotmovies.com. www.lickingnonvanilla.com.